In this video I show you how I made this piñata. It's a pineapple, but you can make it any shape you want. I'm gonna make a round cube because that's the starting point I really like. And switch it here to quad sphere. There you go. Now, like I said, I made a pineapple, and whatever shape your pineapple is up to you. Or if you make another piñata altogether, that's fine by me as well. Just make something you like. I want to squash it a bit with proportional editing on. Right here, I'm gonna flatten it out a bit. Also, grab the bottom and flatten that out a bit. It can be any shape, so let's not waste too much time there. The bottom I want to be a bit flatter because it has to be able to stand, right? Cool. There you go. So open up the editor, make a new geometry node. There you go. That's not what I wanted to do. And in between here, it's fairly simple. A point distribute node and a point instance node. Now, as you can see, it got rid of this. That's fine. We can bring it back and we go to geometry, say join geometry, and in Blender 2.9.3 you have this join geometry where you have multiple inputs available. So now we have our base back, and what we want to do now is create an instance object. And whatever shape you like to create for a piñata, it's all fine, but I start from a plane. And what I did is I scaled one edge over the y-axis, just like that, to create a point. Bring it up in resolution by creating some loop cuts with Ctrl R. And if you like, you can do it as well in this direction. It's not really necessary, but maybe for you it is. So, and there you go. And now maybe rotate it down a bit or up, whatever you like. Let's do this. That's fine. Enable smooth shading. And if you want, you can duplicate this now and create a different variation. Something like this, maybe. I don't know. Why not? And I'm gonna move them to a new collection. Strips, I don't know what else to call them. Back to our pineapple. For good measure, call this pineapple as well. Pineapple. There you go. I can grab with this eyedropper tool one of the meshes. But before I do that, I want to switch to collection and say strips, because that's the collection we want to use. Uncheck whole collection. First, let's scale it down a bit. I want to go to point, say point scale. Change that to vector instead of attribute. And I want to say 0.1 maybe. Let's do 0.1 for now. By the way, you can drag from X to Z and then left to right to influence all the axes all at once. Now this is the size we want. You can either set this to random or Poisson disk. Crank up the intensity, crank up the density. Let's say we do 75 and switch back to random. Now we want to control the point rotation. So insert a point rotation in front of the point instance node. I want to set it to Euler and to point because I want to rotate the point. That's where I got the best results. And look for the axis you need to turn, and in my case it's the Z, and that's gonna be around -90, which makes sense, of course. So I want to duplicate this point rotation node. We don't need this rotation, and I want to set it back to axis angle. Turn up the angle, then switch from Z axis to, let's see, to the Y, so make it 0.6 or 0.5 or whatever you want. I have to go into the different direction. Oh, clearly you can just set it to 1 as well, it doesn't make a difference. Play around with the axis so that they're a bit sticking out. And what you can do now is crank up the density to something that covers your piñata a bit more. So I would like to do this, for example. So maybe we want some size difference in the strips. So let's introduce an attribute randomize node. I want to place this in front of here. Scale. And then play with the minimum. So a minimum of 0.7 and a max of 0.1 maybe. That's fine. Say if you want to exclude the top part. Don't know if you want to, but let's say you want to exclude one of the parts. I'm quickly gonna disable this. Let's select this vertex in edit mode, grow the selection. And in the vertex groups assign some weight to it. Now we can enable the geometry nodes again in the modifier stack. And in the point distribute node, you can say, grab this group node. Let's rename it for now. Let's call this, what shall we call it? Top, why not? Copy that, paste it in here, and now we have only the top, so we want to invert it. And how you can do that is go into attributes, color ramp. I don't want it in between there. I want the attribute here, and I want to override top again. Place it in between here. And now if we go flip colors, that should flip around the vertex group. So that's cool. And with this basic setup, we now have our piñata. If you want some leaves on the crown here, you can easily do that as well. Let's make something that resembles those leaves. So in edit mode, scale this over the x-axis, for example. And I'm gonna give it some definition. Using proportional editing again. And scaling. Now it could be that you have to change one of these, so I'm gonna switch to sharp. That's more like it. And then I select this edge, move it over to Y. Move up the leaves. Move up the side of the leaves. And let's introduce one more in the middle. Why not? Cool. Let's keep it like that. So with that new leaf created right here, let's make a new round cube and scale it down, bring it up somewhere here. If we isolate it for now, I can delete the lower part, isolate the mesh, go into weight painting mode. In the tools panel, let's use the gradient, and from the top down, let's create a gradient. Let's call this size or something. Okay, cool. So this is gonna determine the growth of the crown leaves when they go up. Let's join these two meshes. And now this mesh we just created is also distributing the piñata strips. And how we can exclude it is fairly easy. Island, select this mesh and assign it to the top right here. And there you go. And now it's just a bald spot. I want to create a new point distribute node, connect it up to the geometry node. And I want also a point instance. And this time we only use the crown leaves. So not a collection, just the crown leaves. Connect this up. And as you can see, this is a multi-socket, so that works fine. Now this is a bit of a mess. However, we can fix that. Let's make one more vertex group and call this crown or something. Assign. Use that as the density. So copy the crown. There you go. Use that as the density for the crown leaves. We can also try to use a point. Where is it? Point. We can also try to use a point align rotation to vector node this time. So now they're pointing all straight up. If I try to change the vector to an attribute and insert normal, that'll work. So now they're emitting in their normal direction. And we can tweak the rotation later on. But first I want to use the point scale and have the size, where is it? Size as a vector. At the base they are smaller and at the top they are larger. Now we duplicate this point scale node, change it back to vector and grab these values so we can change the overall shape. Let's increase the density of the leaves. 25 maybe. We can adjust the shape of this, of course. Oh. Disable proportional editing. And just model the shape that you think looks good. So there you go. And maybe bring this into the pineapple a bit more, so we don't see that bald spot coming through. Now that they are roughly in place, let's use the point rotation node. Set it to point instead of object. Otherwise it is gonna displace the whole object, or rotate the whole object, I'm sorry. And if you set it to point, now it's gonna rotate individual points. There you go. This looks more like it. What I wanna do now to add a bit more variation is attribute randomize. Insert the rotation attribute, change this to vector. If we set this to add, it won't override the previous rotations we did. And let's see what axis we need. After some experimenting, we see that we need the X. Play around with these settings a bit so you get a nice distribution and variation. Probably you have to go back and tweak some of the other settings. So I'm gonna tweak the Z of the point rotation. Maybe even the X value as well. Slightly. And then you can just play with the, where is it? Oh, here it is. You can play with the seed, of course, of the distribute node till you get a nice result. I'm gonna leave it at 18. And play with the rotation a bit more. And there will be some intersecting here. That's fine. That's fine. Now maybe your gradient could be a bit smoother or something, so you can go in here. I'm just gonna smooth out the weights of the size vertex group a bit so they come together a bit more. And I have it under my quick menu as well. So something like this could work. Yeah, let's do something like this. Again, you can play around with these settings. And this looks pretty okay to me. Let's quickly make some cool sunglasses. Insert a circle. There you go. Let's fill up this circle. And I like to use the grid fill. That is cool. Now, another thing I like to do is grab these. Wait a second. What's the rotation of this? So it's more or less straight. Let's do 11.5. No. Okay, so make sure this is somewhat straight, this line. So we can in a minute connect the two glasses together. Select these vertices, the border vertices, go into selection, say checker, deselect, and now you can, for example, say, and make a sun shape. That is cool. Go into top view, select all, go to the Y, and maybe connect all of these by using the bridge tool, bridge edge loops. There you go. It's not really necessary, but I like to do it anyway. Flatten out these, and if you like, you could select these polygons. Let's do both of them. Select them, lift them up a bit. That's cool. Maybe add a solidify modifier and place them on the face right there. Anyway, we now have glasses. We have a pineapple. Let's go into shading. So quickly go and open up the UV editor on the side here. Let's see, are these unwrapped? These are all unwrapped, and it doesn't really matter how they are unwrapped in this case, because I prepared a texture that has multiple color gradients on it, and you will see it in a second. So make a pineapple material, Ctrl T to get this node set up, including an image texture. And what I can do now is go into edit mode, grab the UVs. So let's also preview this. Quickly throw in a HDRI so we can see our shading a bit more. And if you are a follower of the channel, you know that I like to use the HDRI Haven, and I like this skylit garage. There you go. It's a pretty uniform lighting, so that's cool in this case. Let's go for the green and adjust the UVs to fit in this square, or it's not a square, to fit in this rectangle. And as you can see, I did it the wrong way around because the gradient is going from left to right on the leaf, and we want it, of course, going from top to bottom. So scale it in the x-axis after you rotated it. Still, this is the other way around. I have to rotate it once again 180 degrees, and now it's from the base darker to a lighter tip. And you can play around with what vertices are darker and what vertices are lighter. That's all up to you. For now, I think this is fine. And our instances are colored the same way. Now let's grab these two, select the leaf again, go into the material tab, and I say copy material to select it. And we do the trick all over again. This time I like to create, probably we have to turn it around again. This time I like to create a yellow strip. It is slowly coming together. What I can do also to cover up the white spots, wait a second, you can see there are some white spots here, is I can go to the object node editor, select this, select all of these, say and say project from view. And I'll also get it the pineapple material and give it the yellow color. So now the base is also yellow, and that covers up these white spots that would occur normally. What I can do now to bring in a bit more variation is I want to bring in an input. Let's use an input object info. Sorry about that, I missed it. And say the random input. There you go. There are multiple ways to go about this. So for example, you could go mix these two together and then the random factor, of course. Crank this all the way up to 1, say soft light, for example. Maybe switch the two around and you have some variation. That's cool. But what you also can do is set this into the factor, get a color hue saturation. There you go. Place it in the second color and maybe darken it. And what I also like to do is get a converter math node, set it to greater than node, and as you can see now we have a more exact mask. The threshold determines what parts are going to be white and what are black. So for this I want to have a few dark spots. And I probably did that the wrong way around. So let's place this, sorry I messed up. Set this back to normal, set this back to mix, switch them around. Maybe this is a bit too dark, so let's do this a bit more. And now we can do that one more time, for example. So we now have two, and right now they're both the same, so that's okay. But I want this to be very little, so probably like what we have before, 0.12, and this could be 0.5, for example. Yeah. If we now change this to a lighter color and maybe even adjust the hue a bit. That's a bit much if you ask me. Something like that. We now have some nice variation. It's a bit dark, so let's get a bit more lighting in here. There you go. And if you would like to adjust this, for example for the glasses, you can make a unique material, say pineapple glasses, for example. And I probably don't need all of this because it's not really working anyway, because there's no instances. Get this, place it in the base material, connect it up, and let's say we want color, hue and saturation again, a bit more saturation, a bit darker, and we could even play around with the color, so the hue. But I like it where it was. Maybe here, that's fine. So yeah, that's how I made a piñata, and I'm really curious to see what you can do with this. You can tag me on Instagram. If you like this video, please comment down below, leave a like. As always, stay creative. I'll see you next time. Ciao.